The Zelda series is well known for its incredible music that's evolved over time. The Zelda series is also not shy into leaning into more of the creepy and eerie aspects, from the horrifying Shadow Temple in Ocarina of Time to the haunting darkness of the Twilight Realm in Twilight Princess. These creepy areas would be nothing if not for their brilliantly atmospheric and iconic soundtracks. In this video, I'm going to be going through each mainline Zelda game, find the creepiest song in each one, and see how the sounds have evolved over the years. The original Legend of Zelda doesn't have many options when it comes to songs, with there only been a total of 12 songs in the game. From this 12, the only 2 songs I would consider to be creepy in any way would be both the dungeon theme and Ganon's dungeon theme. This sets the precedent going forward that dungeon themes in Zelda can be some of the creepiest songs in the game. For the original game, the normal dungeon theme manages to give off a sense of unease, with that fast high-pitched bassline and droning descending melody that sounds as if you were going deeper and deeper into a cave or dungeon. Whilst not completely creepy and more explorative in vibes like the rest of the game's tunes, you can easily see how the music in this series would evolve from here. When it comes to the sequel, we are still sadly on the NES, so we still have that good old-fashioned NES sound chip. We do fortunately have a couple more songs, although this game's soundtrack, rather than being explorative in nature, seems slightly more combat and adventure focused. Even the dungeon theme for this game is much more upbeat and heroic, as if Link is storming a castle rather than creeping around a dark dungeon. I would still say, however, there is one song that could be the creepiest in this game, being the final dungeon theme. This song is a dark version of the usual dungeon theme, which shares a similar melody but is overall much more sinister and feels almost hopeless compared to the heroic theme used in other dungeons. This is by far the darkest song in the game, which compared to the next game's songs would be considered joyful. A Link to the Past is where the Zelda series fully embraces a few creepy parts of the game, and the music is able to evolve past 2 channels, as we are now on the SNES. With 8 channels on the new sound chip, this is really when the songs gain a lot of character, and A Link to the Past is home to some iconic Zelda songs. It also means that we have 3 times the amount of songs to pick from, as the game is able to be much larger. Most of the songs from this game have slightly evil undertones, but are still overall heroic, going for the big brassy sounding arrangements such as Black Mist and Dark Golden Land. We also get some strings for tension in a lot of songs such as Dank Dungeon, but these are much more for building up tension in a scene rather than being creepy. Also, a few villain themes such as the Priest of Darkness theme are iconic and evil sounding, but don't have that uncanny feeling like a lot more of the creepy songs in the game. So aside from all the evil sounding foreboding themes, we're left with only a couple of options for the creepiest songs in A Link to the Past. The Lost Ancient Ruins theme is a very nice atmospheric piece that makes you feel, well, almost lost, as if you were between worlds. The very spacey and echoey notes make it feel as if you're in a massive void, and really suits the area that this plays in. It reminds me of aquatic ambience from Donkey Kong Country, as it's got that similar sort of ethereal vibe. The Majestic Castle theme, although a quite heroic sounding track, as well as being quite iconic, still fills me with dread when listening to it, as the entwining woodwinds and synths over a marching backing track make it sound mostly orderly with a creepy undertone. The Fortune Teller theme shows that a creepy song does not necessarily have to be dark sounding, but can be off-putting whilst being upbeat. This theme perfectly encapsulates the uncanniness of a fortune teller, as it makes you really think whether or not you might be in danger. This theme is definitely in a close second, as it's still got that creepiness factor without overdoing it, but the song that takes it for this game is one that combines the previous few things that makes the song super creepy. Safety of the Sanctuary, although a very beautiful sounding song, and one meant to make you feel safe, is the creepiest song in A Link to the Past. This song's sparse and drawn out notes make you feel as if the safety is only temporary as the world outside is falling apart. The isolation and lack of direction this song makes you feel is similar to the Lost Ancient Ruins theme, as it shares the similar ethereal vibe. The church instrumentation also gives it a creepy undertone and makes the whole song almost joyful, but not quite, which puts it in an uncertain area, giving that uncanny feel. Later on in the Zelda series, there are some other great examples of how using beautiful and somber arrangements can lead to creepiness, and this song was the very beginning. Ocarina of Time is where the series delves into creepier aspects in all forms, from the enemy designs to the locales, and of course the music. Ocarina of Time has some of the creepiest moments in all of the Zelda series. This game also is able to take advantage of MIDI sounds and able to have a lot more music in general, with a whopping 82 tracks just by being on the Nintendo 64. The music in this game is very vast, from the stunning opening title theme to the evil Ganon's theme. especially as Child Link when we get a lot of whimsical songs such as the Kokiri Forest theme or the Hyrule Town theme. The game remains pretty upbeat until we reach the second dungeon, Dodongo's Cavern, which encapsulates a dark, creepy cave and is the first departure from the carefree world. However, once Link gets a Master Sword and becomes an adult, this is when the game really starts accelerating to being a drab, hopeless, and creepy world. This is where the game completely shifts, with each dungeon Link completes becoming darker and darker. Even just leaving the Temple of Time, rather than being met by any music, we just hear the rustling wind and distant crows, with the occasional shrieks of redeads. The Kakariko village graveyard also shows that by having no music can sometimes be just as creepy as specifically engineered creepy music. Quiet ambience really makes you feel alone and creeped out on what could be lurking within the graveyard. Before talking about the temple themes, which I find are all the creepiest in this game, I wanted to mention Ganon's castle theme. This song uses the organ to great extent, which, as I mentioned in A Link to the Past section, church instrumentation can be used to give a sort of grand creepiness to the music. In this game, I find this theme to be much more threatening and scary over actually being creepy, but it's just such a good song to not mention here. Out of all the temples, the one temple theme which isn't innately creepy would be the Water Temple, which is kind of funny seeing it's normally the one people link with being the infamously frustrating one. Whether it's because of overexposure to the theme or just how mystical it is, it doesn't really give me creepy vibes, but rather like exploring a sunken ship at the bottom of the sea or some sort of ancient ruins fallen beneath the ocean sort of vibes. The sparkly chimes make me envision water droplets falling on a body of water, and the longer synths and flute parts are like diving deep beneath the surface towards a mystical goal portrayed by the dulcimer which stands out in the arrangement. The piece is much more beautiful and mystical rather than just being creepy, unlike these next temple themes. The Spirit Temple sounds a lot warmer and earthy, especially compared to the Water Temple. This track is obviously inspired by Middle Eastern music, with a bass duduk for the woodwind, and congas, gongs, and a mark tree for percussion. This theme speaks more as being lost in an ancient desert ruin, and has hints of exploration through the melody rather than it being creepy. Still quite a haunting track, but not necessarily creepy. The Forest Temple theme is one of the best dungeon themes in not only this game, but the whole series, due to just how atmospheric it is. The way the music makes you feel alone in the forest, but not really fully alone, is just perfect for an abandoned temple, overgrown and pretty much now part of the forest. This song consists of only a couple of parts, with the main atmospheric part consisting of a glass harmonica, the odd laughter of Pose being played by a harpsichord, and plenty of bone rattlings throughout the song. These three simple elements allow for quite a sparse arrangement, which as mentioned earlier, less can be more and actually make the song creepier. This song, however, isn't the creepiest song in Ocarina of Time, as this theme can sometimes be quite soothing, unlike this next theme. The Shadow Temple theme is made with one purpose in mind, to put you on edge and creep you out. This theme, with its underlying bongos being created by the boss of the dungeon, and its long chant-like synths that string the melody along, create a much darker atmosphere than any of the other temple themes. This is fitting for how dark and evil this whole dungeon is, with traps and torture devices all around. Throughout this song, if you listen closely, you can almost hear the screams of people who most likely met their demise in this cursed temple. Also, sounds of heavy machinery or torture devices can be heard throughout the song, which greatly help the creepy atmosphere. There is one theme in the game, however, that I think is the creepiest song, even beating out the Shadow Temple, as it was so creepy it had to be removed from the future releases of the game. The Fire Temple may have one of the creepiest songs in the entirety of the Zelda series, and even if you have played Ocarina of Time before, you may have never heard this theme. You might not know, but there's actually two versions of the Fire Temple song. The original one, which was on only the original few versions of the Ocarina of Time N64 cartridge, and then the newer version, which is on all the remakes and the later releases. The original theme shows a lot of similarities with the current version, except is made even creepier with the addition of chanting coming in and out of the theme throughout the song. The already creepy atmospheric background sounds of blowing wind and percussion is added to by chanting, which will slowly fade in and out and become incredibly loud at points. The chanting throughout the song to me is from all the trapped Gorons who have been imprisoned inside the volcano, trying to either call for help or communicate with each other through the temple. The chanting also makes the temple feel somewhat cursed, with significant heritage adding to the creepy atmosphere. The updated version of this theme has the chants removed due to Nintendo having an issue with any religion being in the game, as the chants when translated from Arabic spoke about Allah. The newer tracks with the removed chanting doesn't quite hit the same in terms of how creepy the temple feels, as the chants were replaced with a low moan similar to the Shadow Temple theme. The whole vibes of the Fire Temple in general are incredibly dreary, and in a not so on the nose way as the Shadow Temple, as it's sad seeing all of the Gorons imprisoned and about to be eaten throughout the temple. For me, the chanting version is the better version for how creepy and dark it makes the dungeon feel, and in my opinion is the creepiest song in Ocarina of Time. Undoubtedly the creepiest game in the entire series, this section will most likely be the longest in the video, due to so much of the game having such a creepy vibe. Every part of this game just oozes hopelessness, and that's also true from the music. Even just the title screen seeing the evil moon and the creepy mask, accompanied with Majora's theme, is sure to send a chill down your spine. Majora's theme is so off-putting and creepy with how dark the bassoon sounds on top of the track. And even though this theme is pretty iconic, it's not even close to one of the creepiest in the game. One of the other iconic tracks in the game, or even in the whole Zelda series, is the Song of Healing. This is such a sad sounding yet almost beautiful piece of music that feels very emotional all the way through. Although this isn't over the top creepy, I still wanted to mention it, as I feel you can't talk about Majora's Mask music without mentioning this piece. The slow moving piano melody gives each note such power as if it carries a lot of sorrow or regret. The simplicity of it just being a piano piece means it gives your brain more time to think instead of being overwhelmed by the song. A more atmospheric version of the song takes place within the clock tower that incorporates chimes and a choir on top of the piano, giving it much more depth. This version sounds almost angelic and even has the occasional feel of comfort in this otherwise completely dark game. The Song of Healing is definitely an eerie track, and in any other game would be up there as one of the creepiest, but in Majora's Mask, this is more of a comforting song compared to the other themes. The places which are most off-putting are the several dungeons in the game, each having their own gloomy atmospheric themes. The Snowhead Temple is located on top of an icy peak, and the songs you hear within are very representative of that. Howling winds can be heard the whole time through the track, with some of them sounding like distant moans or trapped souls. There is also this bouncy electric piano that pops in from time to time to keep you on edge constantly. Faint icy chimes can also be sometimes heard, symbolizing the icicles that fall into the dungeon and helps bring the piece all together. The Great Bay Temple theme to me is much creepier, which could be due to its more mechanical feel with metallic clanging and a much steadier bass line. At the 40-second mark, it also has an anxiety-inducing, very quick electric piano part that makes me feel the same way the Guardian attack music does. Immediately after that finishes, it transitions into an alarm that sounds like a submarine being flooded, before finally looping back around. This song is far more active than Snowhead Temple, and fills me with a lot more anxiety, and overall is just a creepier vibe. The best temple theme in this game has to easily be the Stone Tower Temple theme, as it not only manages to create a creepy atmosphere, but does so using a nice range of instruments, with an ocarina and a large range of percussion. This theme doesn't go for purely atmospheric vibes like the other two, but still contains the same howling wind like at Snowhead, as most of the dungeon is quite open, so it's to be expected. And the creepiness in the song comes from the almost tribal-like sounds, with bongos and droning melodies. As the temple itself is some sort of ancient ritual site, this theme is perfectly fitting and makes you feel as if you're not meant to be there. The chanting in this track is very haunting, and as it runs through the whole theme, it feels as if there is a ritual taking place at the very time you're in the dungeon. Hearing the little melodies played by several instruments over the top give the sense that this place used to be a very active religious site, which makes sense with all the religious connotations in the dungeon itself, such as it being the Tower of Babel. On top of the normal theme, there is also an inverted version of this already creepy theme, which has some reverse notes playing, as well as just a generally eerier tone. This version loses a lot of the vocals and feels a bit creepier in a more empty way, with the combination of the pitch being a lot higher and more piercing. Both of these themes working together throughout the dungeon make this one of the more creepy dungeon themes in the entire series. Of course, not just the dungeons are creepy in this game, but also some areas around Termina. The mountain village up in the snowy mountains contains a surprisingly creepy theme that I would say is creepier than the Snowhead Temple theme, even though they both share a lot of the same features. The howling winds is constant in the background still, except this time a piano plays an eerie melody over the top, which gives the feel of an abandoned, disaster-ridden village. We also get some background angelic chanting partway through the song, before it transitions into mainly just the choir singing, and then returning to loop. This song has no right being so creepy, but sends a shiver down my spine every time I hear it. There is also Ocarina Valley, which has to have the creepiest overworld theme. The track starts with grumbling like the dead are rising up through the earth before it is overtaken by these deathly dark moans. These moans eventually duet with an ocarina, which continues for a bit, setting the darkness of the area. Then the track unexpectedly transitions to a lighter part with a much softer voice singing the melody. This juxtaposition shows that there may be some light left in this otherwise dead place. Sadly, this part doesn't last long before the hellish moans return, even stronger than before, reminding the player that there is no hope left here. To take a break from the pure evil and darkness, let's talk about the creepiness of the unknown. At Romani's farm, you can have an encounter with extraterrestrial life, where they will attack the farm at night and you have to defend the ranch. This is a super creepy part of the game, as these aliens are not explained and are super eerie with how they look. Being such a creepy and unknown enemy, the theme that plays when they attack also matches this eerie vibe. The theme is some very strange sounding noises with synths that you would match with alien-like creatures. This song overall just sounds otherworldly and is very different to everything else in the game, making it an incredibly creepy theme. Before talking about what I think is objectively the creepiest song in Majora's Mask, I wanted to talk about my favourite song in not just Majora's Mask, but also in the entire Zelda series. Astral Observatory is the perfect combination of a dark and somber, yet hauntingly beautiful song. The sparkly glockenspiel, choir, and harpsichord give it such an ethereal, almost godly feeling. The sharpness of the piano breaking through makes the entire track feel more powerful and meaningful, instead of just a fragile piece if it was just the other instruments. The way the track also feels like it's constantly revolving around in a circle, almost like a time loop, makes it sound as if the track will play forever, no matter what was to happen. Overall, it's just a super melancholic track that, depending on how you look at it, could make you feel a wide range of emotions, from peace to anxiety, but will always have that beautiful quality and slight air of eeriness around it. The first 2 days of Clocktown are quite peaceful, and the song represents that nicely with a very welcoming tune that on the second day is slightly sped up. Both these days' songs are quite nice to listen to, but once you reach day 3, it starts to get very creepy. The song is not only sped up to a speed which makes you feel rushed and panicked, but we also start to hear very dark undertone with these dark, gloomy synths played constantly throughout the song. The song alone is super creepy, but once midnight is hit on the final day, that's when we hear the creepiest song in all of Zelda. Listening to this song will always send a shiver down my spine, with how hopeless and destroyed it sounds, like all is lost. The eerie and insanely dark sounding synths that play throughout this song have the ability to make you feel so distraught and overwhelmed, whilst the constant quiet synths in the background fill the quiet parts of the song, almost blocking your ears from escaping it. Even at the part where the song has a glimmer of hope within it, it swiftly falls back down into the gloomy and despair-filled main section. Listening to this in-game will also have the added clock tower bells ringing over the song, making it truly feel that time is running out. The bells ringing with the song fully complete it, as the interruptions feel so natural to the song and create such an uneasy and creepy atmosphere. This has got to be one of the greatest creepy atmospheric songs, not only in Zelda, but all of gaming, and shows just how good a job Majora's Mask does at setting its creepy and dark tone. After Majora's Mask being one of the darkest games in the series, we have Windwaker, one of the lightest and friendliest games. This does not mean it doesn't have its share of evil and creepy songs, however, as certain sections in the game lean heavily into being off-putting. There are several songs in the game that I would say fall into ancient sounding tracks that make it feel as if you're not meant to be there. Tracks like Tower of the Gods does this very well with its chanting echoing through the song, complemented by chimes and an organ. Unlike Tower of the Gods, Hyrule Castle has a much darker tone to it, as rather than an ancient civilization, it's more of a sadder Fallen Kingdom vibe. Although a darker theme, there is still a sense of regalness throughout with a choir and strings pulling it along. Ganon's Castle and the Cursed Great Sea are much more evil sounding tracks over them being creepy, and act as a foreboding presence to complement the dangerous environment they play in. The Great Sea is Cursed takes a usually safe theme of the Great Sea and warps it, making you feel at edge in a before comforting environment. Whilst Ganon's Castle uses powerful instruments like a leading piano to show the power of Ganon and how weak you are compared to him. The Jabun theme has a very ethereal feeling to it that makes you feel as if you are meeting a mysterious, powerful creature that you don't know what it's capable of. Although it definitely has the possibility to be creepy, as it plays on that feeling of being small with the echoey synths and opera-like singing. The track itself is a little too goofy to be the creepiest song in the game. The cave theme is another highly atmospheric song, which has the possibility to be creepy, but also could be relaxing depending on the context. The simplicity of this song works well for it, as again it feels very sparse and open, but almost like it has something to hide within its depths, whether good or bad. The creepiest track by far in Windwaker, however, belongs to a dungeon that I'm sure has given kids nightmares when they first played this game. It's of course the Earth Temple. This track uses a lot of tribal instrumentation, such as a didgeridoo, to create that unknown feeling with its unique instruments. The music sounds as if it could be created diegetically within the temple, as a sort of ancient ritual, and it's that fear of the unknown that makes this track so creepy. The random flute-like parts sound as if someone is screaming in the rooms next door, and the way the song doesn't seem to follow a set rhythm, other than the percussion underneath, adds to that sort of tribal vibe. The dungeon this track plays in only adds to the creepy factor, with this being the main location where redeads are found in Windwaker. And unlike the Ocarina of Time appearance, these redeads appear to be from an ancient tribe, with their unique tattoos and large earrings. This theme fits the one main creepy dungeon in this otherwise upbeat game, and I think did a great job of setting the tone of a dark tune. After Wind Waker, the Zelda series returned back to a much darker tone with Twilight Princess, which unlike Wind Waker, it's hard not to find a creepy part of this game. The game just exudes a creepy atmosphere, so picking which song to talk about was tricky because of how many nightmarish songs there are. The first song I wanted to talk about is a boss theme that to me just screams insanity. Xanth's theme, Light and Darkness, is a very slow, unsettling piece with what sounds like either screams or sirens scattered throughout. The creepy grumbling sounds make you feel very unwelcome in his presence, before finally finishing in a dramatic brassy fanfare that still has an aura of evil sounding to it. This theme fits Xanth super well in how crazy the song sounds, but by far isn't the creepiest this game has to offer. Most of the dungeon themes in this game are perfect atmospheric themes, similar to Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. Each one suits the dungeon extremely well, which is crazy seeing how different each of the dungeons are in this game. The two more subtle tracks are the Lakebed Temple theme and the Goron Mines themes. Both are quite airy arrangements. Especially the Lakebed Temple theme, which is mainly just this low ominous hum with an occasional notes from other instruments. This makes the dungeon feel completely abandoned, unlike the Goron Mines, where although the howling winds take up most of the song, clanging noises can be heard throughout, which to me sound like a pickaxe or machinery mining away. Other low growling chants coming into the song about the 1 minute mark reminisce of the Fire Temple in Ocarina of Time, and occasionally you can hear spouts of steam and other mechanical noises, which gives the feel of it being an active mine. The city in the sky you would think would have a nice, not creepy theme, seeing how bright it is up here in the sky compared to the rest of the game, but that could not be further from the truth. Similar to other ethereal songs in the series, such as the Tower of the Gods, it uses a very floaty sounding synth that makes it sound quite regal, but then contrasts it with some much darker notes to give it an unsettling and creepy vibe. It also has these futuristic sounding alarms that go off a couple of times throughout the song, as well as some organic noises that I presume are the ockers. However, this off-putting theme is nowhere near as creepy as the next temple theme, as it's the spiritual successor to the Shadow Temple. Arbiter's Ground is 100% the creepiest dungeon in this game, as it's pretty much if the Spirit Temple and the Shadow Temple from Ocarina of Time had a child. It's the Spirit Temple that got converted into a jail to store the evilest things in Hyrule, and the theme represents that perfectly. This track shares a lot of similarities with the Shadow Temple, with a much slower bongo in the background and the still haunting long droning moans. Through the entire track, machinery can also be heard, likely to be some sort of torture device deep within the temple. And not only does it take inspiration from the Shadow Temple, but also the Spirit Temple, with certain parts having little melodies that sound like ancient Middle Eastern songs. This theme is hands down the best dungeon theme in the game, but the creepiest song actually goes to a different theme. The Twilight Realm is the core part of Twilight Princess, and is a dark, scary place, so the theme has to fit that vibe perfectly. The start of the song begins in an almost boot up sort of sound, as a lot of the Twilight does feel somehow computational with the black squares and almost glitching atmosphere. The long piercing synths weave in and out of the steady fast moving bassline before the song converts into a glockenspiel playing the grandfather Westminster chime, which a lot of people find to be quite an eerie sound to hear. The glockenspiel then fades out, still just in the background, before returning to the synths, this time much darker. This part really makes you feel hopeless, like there is no way out of this cursed realm. The song continues to weave in between sharp-piercing high-pitched synths, the glockenspiel, and lower drawn-out, more atmospheric synths. And having the song constantly change has a great effect on keeping you alert and on edge whilst in the Twilight realm. There is also another track very similar to this one, called the Palace of Twilight theme, which to me isn't as creepy as it feels much more regal and formal than just the Twilight theme. The Twilight in general is a super creepy place, so it makes perfect sense that this is the creepiest song in this already extremely creepy game. Twilight Princess is a hard game to follow up, as Skyward Sword is nowhere near as dark and creepy as Twilight Princess. Although not inherently a dark game, there are certainly some parts of the game that will creep you out, with as usual a couple of atmospheric dungeon themes, as well as some quite scary character themes. Girahim is the main villain you come across in Skyward Sword, and his theme perfectly represents pure malice as a character. This theme has tinges of creepiness in it, but goes for a more threatening and scary sort of vibe. The imposing marching piano with the strings on top helps him aura farm like crazy. This theme is definitely more of a powerful theme, similar to Ganon's theme, where he was trying to flaunt his power and strength over being creepy more like Zant. I can't talk about Skyward Sword and not mention the horrifying Silent Realm and the original anxiety-inducing Guardians. Most of the Silent Realm themes fill you with anxiety, as these are some of the scariest places in the entire game. But the most panicking experience is when the Guardians activate and the Guardians Awaken theme plays. The loud metallic clanging makes it sound as loud footsteps chasing after you, giving a sense of no matter where you go, you are not safe. And the ghostly screams and high-pitched strings keep you on edge like a horror movie soundtrack. To me though, this track isn't creepy as it's too overtly scary and threatening, similar to the Guardian track in Breath of the Wild. The first dungeon in Skyward Sword is the Skyview Temple, and usually in Zelda games the first temple starts off quite chill and not that creepy, but this game is the exception. This theme is surprisingly eerie and feels as if you're constantly being watched within this ancient structure. The synths along with the violin build up an aura of unknown, like you are about to explore a lost civilization or ruins. Then when the oboe comes in, it makes you think you are not the only one within the structure, as the meandering notes sound as if something is following you. This is honestly a really great first dungeon theme, as it starts by being creepy, but mainly focuses on the mysterious and explorative nature of Skyward Sword. The next dungeon theme is the Lanayru mining facility, which is a three-dimensional song, as there are two versions of it that plays in both the past and the present. The present version is much more of a stripped down and empty feeling track, with obvious desert-inspired melodies that really set the tone of an abandoned desert location. The vibraphone rattling throughout the track almost adds a stressful you are not meant to be there vibe, and the overall empty feeling of the track makes it seem as if the place used to be so much more. Which it was, as with the past soundtrack the song feels so much fuller, with several more instruments giving it much more futuristic mechanical sound on top of the abandoned deserty vibe. The past version is definitely more ethereal, but the combination of the past and present together makes it a very unique feeling dungeon, although not entirely creepy. The last and most definitely creepiest dungeon I wanted to talk about is the Ancient Cistern. At surface level, this dungeon appears to be a lovely, peaceful, Buddha-inspired cistern, all bright and relaxing. And the music is no different, being something you would expect to hear on a meditation CD. This peaceful place, however, had to be cleansed of evil at some point. And as we have seen from past Shadow Temple dungeons in the Zelda series, the evil does not disappear, but is stored somewhere else. In this case, the evil is stored in literal hell beneath the main rooms of the dungeon. The music down here is much more muffled and empty sounding, with occasional chimes or melodies from the main theme. Then at about the 1 minute mark, we get what I like to imagine is meant to be a grandfather clock ticking, or even water dripping from above down into the underworld. The constant ticking and grandfather clock chimes, as well as random clanging sounds, fill you with dread, and is incredibly creepy, especially juxtaposed with a much nicer and meditative sounding theme just above. We have finally reached what I would call modern Zelda with Breath of the Wild. The soundtrack in general is quite sparse and more atmospheric, but also has some proper creepy tracks, as the world of Hyrule is in a post-apocalyptic state. Firstly, I just want to get the track that you're probably thinking of right now out of the way. The Guardian battle theme, although fear and anxiety inducing, would not be a track I would describe as creepy, rather more unsettling. The starting quick piano notes still incite fear into me to this day, and the rest of the song is meant to be as tense as possible to keep you on edge at this massive threat. I would also lump in the Hyrule Castle theme, which in this game is a very grand yet still spooky song. Especially the interior, which is much more delicate sounding, even incorporating Zelda's lullaby into it, giving it a much eerier vibe. The Blood Moon is an event in Breath of the Wild where all of the enemies respawn after several in-game days have passed. The combination of the sky turning red and the creepy backwards notes that begin this track are sure to send a shiver down your spine. And once the Blood Moon actually starts, the music will pick up in a sort of warning alarm sort of sound, letting you know that everywhere you thought was now safe is back to being dangerous. This is definitely one of the creepier moments in the game, and the song itself helps with that feeling. From a creepy moment to just a more odd and strange one is Kilton's little monster shop. He is a bit of an odd character and his theme definitely embodies that. It's full of some weird sounds such as squeaky doors and flutes, giving it a creepy vibe in an unknown sort of way, like you don't know what his true intentions are. The song always keeps you on your toes, changing up quite a lot, and definitely has parts which sound like a market shop, and other sounds which sound like shrieks or monster sounds. Certainly one of the oddest and eeriest themes in this game. The songs in this game that I would say are 100% the creepiest of all are the Divine Beast themes. Almost every single one of these sounds as if they could be background music of a horror movie. As there are 3 parts for each Divine Beast, I'm just going to talk about the first track from the 3 runner-ups, and then deep dive into the one I find to be the creepiest. Var Meadow Shrine A is probably the weakest of the 4, but is still incredibly atmospheric as the mechanical sounds entwined with the wind really fit the Divine Beast. The background sounds of the wind going by has a sense of beauty to it, and would be peaceful if not for the intrusive piano, strings, and some beats over the top which keep you on edge and unsettled. Varudania Shrine A is next, and is super offsetting in a much darker way than Var Meadow. The much more earthy feel and bassier parts suits the hostile volcanic environment perfectly. Again we get sounds of machinery beeps and boops, and echoing screeches scattered throughout. This and the darkness inside Varudania pair together so well, as it feels as if your senses are being hindered within the Divine Beast. Varnaboris has a lot more flair than the others, with this soft piano melody driving the piece, interrupted with what I like to imagine being giant footsteps of the Divine Beast crashing into the sand. The crash is very dissonant, and so keeps you on high alert like you were in a highly unstable piece of machinery. On top of that, the screeching in this song is quite high pitched, and constant in the background, like the winds blowing over the sand dunes in the Gerudo Desert. The Divine Beast which I think has the creepiest sounding theme however is Varruda, which also has one of the saddest sounding themes. The contrast of this almost upbeat piano melody with these dissonant chords filling the air gives a very melancholic vibe and is actually a lot creepier than a spooky melody on top of a spooky backing track. The second track then picks up the piano piece as a sort of alarm, while still having the top melody be very sparkly and in the forefront with crashing piano in between. This definitely starts to lean towards a more threatening theme with much more danger than the first part. The final part then brings in percussion and makes the melody move from very low to very high, creating a very uneasy and unstable track that seems as if it could implode at any moment. It's also a good time to mention that these tracks have an SOS call in Morse code being played in the background of them, with each track it becoming clearer and clearer. This is from Mipha trying to call out for help when the Divine Beast started attacking her, as she realized she was not going to be able to beat it by herself. It makes the track even creepier that within it she is trying to call for help, as she is trapped within the Divine Beast. Tears of the Kingdom, like Breath of the Wild, is composed of a lot of sparse, atmospheric music, as it's still an open world game. But with the addition of the depths and gloom being everywhere, this game has its share of creepy songs. Perhaps the creepiest Zelda enemy in recent times has to be the Gloom Hands. These disgusting looking hands, made entirely out of gloom, gave me and everyone else a fright the very first time we were unfortunate enough to encounter them. These enemies are so unsettling due to their almost random occurrence of them spawning in, as well as them having a scary theme and turning the screen insanely dark. The spawning of the hands caught me so off guard when it first happened, and made them so much more horrifying than if they were to spawn in an already creepy location. The fact that they can seem to spawn randomly in a peaceful environment makes these enemies and their theme super scary. The encounter with them left me feeling unsafe, and the music fits this feeling well, sounding as if gloom has come alive. Definitely an iconic moment, but the music itself doesn't scream creepy, but rather danger. Another dangerous sounding song belongs to a much goofier character that has upped his game in Tears of the Kingdom. Unlike in Breath of the Wild, where Koga is a bit of a pushover, in Tears of the Kingdom, especially the final fight, he may give you a run for your money. His theme shows this pretty well with a large ominous build-up before transitioning into a large dramatic sound similar to Girahim's theme from Skyward Sword. This theme is surprisingly threatening and helps greatly to make Master Koga feel dangerous. The Hyrule Castle theme for this game, unlike Breath of the Wild, which was quite active and loud, is much more quiet and creepy, giving a sort of abandoned and decayed feel. The theme is definitely creepier than the Breath of the Wild Hyrule Castle. This theme that plays down on the ground is insanely desolate, with sparse notes being played, before at the 1 minute mark exploding into a very short, sand-ending piano run. This theme feels hopeless all around, but instills much more despair for me over creepiness. In this game, the creepiest songs for me weren't actually the dungeon themes, as they would pick up and become quite heroic as you completed more shrines, giving them a much more light-hearted feeling, especially compared to Breath of the Wild's Divine Beasts. The real creepy songs came from the disaster-ridden towns. Gerudo Town, instead of its usual sunny self, is covered in a dark sandstorm and overrun by Gibdos, void of any life. The song that plays here fits this haunting vibe, as a much darker and emptier arrangement, with the occasional faint little chimes of the original Gerudo Town theme peeking through the sandstorm winds. The deep growls I envision as the Gibdos slowly moving around the now abandoned city, and the ominous winds that blow through the song as the dead air in the town. This theme is definitely one of the darkest and creepiest this game has to offer, but the song that stuck out to me the most when playing it was this next one. When arriving to Zora's Domain in pretty much every Zelda game, you are usually met with one of the most peaceful and welcoming songs in the entirety of the series. The Zora's Domain theme is such a chill song and makes Zora's Domain one of my favourite locations in Breath of the Wild. In Tears of the Kingdom, however, this once relaxing place has been corrupted and polluted by goop, making the whole environment very sick, and the music that plays matches this perfectly. Instead of the usual upbeat Zora's Domain theme, here we are met with the sick sounding version, with misplayed notes and a much darker tone. Hearing this theme in the minor tone is super off-putting, especially in the context of how the theme normally sounds. The track sounds crazed and off-putting, with the random speed changes and extra unwelcoming piano runs that ruin the serenity of the original song. The over-the-top unsettling nature of this song fits the visual damage done to Zora's Domain and sounds exactly like a broken or ill version of the theme. The first time coming here in Tears of the Kingdom, there is an obvious hopelessness in the air that the entire Zora's Domain is doomed, and this song's creepiness adds to that factor tremendously, which is why I would say it's easily the creepiest song in Tears of the Kingdom. If you made it all the way to the end of this massive video, thank you so much. If you enjoyed this type of content, let me know by subscribing, and check out the video on screen now if you want to see some of the weirdest characters in Breath of the Wild.